Hey, how you doing today, folks? In today's video, I'm going to continue my review of the plot leak. And in this video, I'm going to actually go over episode 3. So what I'll do is I'll read the entire leaked episode, and then I'll break down each section of it and discuss what sounds like it's going to happen, what has been proved in some photos, and then I'll talk about what seems like it could be made up or is not actually going to happen next season. Okay, so here we go. Episode 3. Says Jon and Davos arrive on Dragonstone and meet Tyrion on the beach. Tyrion brings them to meet Daenerys. Dany demands Jon bend the knee, which he refuses. Jon instead tells her about the White Walker threat, but she doesn't believe him. Davos tries to tell her about Jon's resurrection, but Jon dismisses it. Tyrion steps in to say Jon's a good guy and definitely not insane. Dany respects Jon immediately, although Jon doesn't return to sentiment. Jon meets Theon on the beach and promises to spare his life for what he did helping Sansa escape. Arya encounters her old direwolf Nymeria on the way back to Winterfell. Jorah and Sam meet in Old Town and find a cure for grayscale. Bran arrives at Winterfell and Meera returns home to the Neck. Okay, so that's episode 3, so let's break down each section of it and discuss it. It says Jon and Davos arrive on Dragonstone and meet Tyrion on the beach. Now, there's no way for me to dispute this. Photos have already came out that show this exactly happening, exactly as it states in the leak. There's been several photos that show Jon and Davos meeting Tyrion on the beach, surrounded by the Dothraki, and in the photo you actually see Jon and Tyrion shaking hands. So that's definitely going to happen next season. It says Tyrion brings them to meet Daenerys, which we definitely know happens as well. We've already seen in the leaked photos, Jon and Daenerys in several different photos, meeting each other, walking, talking, stuff like that. Dany demands Jon to bend the knee, which he refuses to do. Now, there's been no evidence of this. I'm not really sure why she would do this. You think Tyrion would have already told, her about Jon? If she, in fact, sends the Raven out, you think her and Tyrion would be talking about Jon as he's getting ready to arrive, and you think Tyrion would be like, well, he's a good guy. So you think maybe she wouldn't do that, but she's on a mission to claim this throne as her own, so I can definitely see her wanting everybody to respect her. And it says Jon instead tells her about the White Walker threat, but she doesn't believe him. Now, at first, when I first read this leak, probably a month ago or however long ago it came out, I found this kind of hard to believe at first. And not just out of everybody, just, specifically Dany. Because she has these 3 large dragons, so I kind of thought, well, why would she find it hard to, believe that there'd be other creatures out there? But when you think about it, no one believes this threat. Pretty much everybody that, Jon's ever talked to about it or anybody's ever discussed it with, they've all pretty much dismissed it as just, a story or a fairy tale. So, Dany may be one of those people as well who think, that's kind of ludicrous. So we'll definitely have to see how that plays out and see if it's actually true that Jon has to go capture one of these to prove it to everybody, which you'd hope he wouldn't have to do, but sometimes to get somebody's attention, you can't just tap him on the shoulder. You got to hit him over the head with a hammer. So he may have to go to that extent to prove that there is actually White Walkers. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. It says Davos tries to tell her about Jon's resurrection, but Jon dismisses it. Tyrion steps in to say Jon's a good guy and definitely not insane. Now that part I definitely believe. I definitely think Tyrion would say that Jon's a good guy. I assume Tyrion would already have said this to Dany as Jon's traveling there to meet her. So you think by the time Dany and Jon met, she wouldn't ask him to bend a knee? You think she'd just pull him to the side and have a discussion with him about her plans and intentions? And then Jon could tell her about, what he wants to do? So you think she could avoid having to ask him to bend a knee, but, whatever. Whatever she wants to do, it's up to her. She's got the larger army and a big-ass dragon, so she can tell pretty much anybody to do whatever she wants. But Tyrion and Jon have a pretty good relationship. And I know some people don't believe that because they didn't spend a whole lot of time together. But if you remember their last conversation together, it showed me, at least, of how much their relationship and bond actually grew over the time that they spent together, traveling to the Wall and being at the Wall together. And when Tyrion and Jon first met, Jon kind of had his guard up, considering Tyrion was a Lannister. He probably assumed he was an asshole like the rest of them. He probably assumed he was an asshole like Jaime. If you remember when Jaime and Jon first met, Jaime was pretty much disrespecting Jon and kind of treating him like a child. So Jon probably assumed Tyrion would be just like his brother, like an asshole. But Jon and Tyrion's last conversation together was actually a pretty good conversation, and actually let me know how they felt about each other at that time. And when Tyrion said he wanted to piss off the top of the wall, when he was actually up there doing that and he turned around to leave, Jon actually said, "I'm sorry to see you leave, Lannister." And Tyrion said, "It's either me or this cold, and it doesn't appear to be going anywhere." And Jon asked him if he was going to stop at Winterfell on his way south. And Tyrion said, "I expect I will. Gods know there aren't many feather beds between here and King's Landing." And Jon said, "Well, if you see my little brother Bran, tell him I miss him. Tell him I would visit if I could." And Tyrion said, "Of course. Take care, Snow." Then they shook hands, and Jon said, "Farewell, my lord." So at this point, Jon was no longer talking down on Tyrion, and Tyrion was no longer calling Jon a bastard. Jon actually said, "Farewell, my lord," and he said, "Take care, Snow," and they shook hands. So they definitely grew fond of each other by this time. And Tyrion, he actually saved Jon at the wall. After Jon broke Gren's nose as they were training, Jon was putting the training swords away, and that's when Gren and a couple other guys of the Night's Watch rolled up on Jon and was starting to rough him up, and they actually acted like they were going to kill him. But Tyrion stepped in and said, "You guys have these very distinctive faces that I will remember, basically faces I could tell my sister about and pretty much have you guys killed." And that's when the guys took off running, and I think ever since then, Jon kind of respected Tyrion for stepping in and saving him like that when he didn't have to. He went out of his way to back Jon up there. So I could definitely see from here on out, Tyrion backing Jon up again. And Jon, he really has no reason to not like Tyrion at this point either. I think they're going to have a very good relationship from here on out throughout the rest of the series. Because Tyrion went out of his way to be respectful to the Starks several different times. Tyrion saved Jon. He saved Lady Catelyn, even though he was a prisoner of hers, and she was taking him to the Eyrie to stand trial. They were ambushed, and Tyrion actually saved her life when he could have just let her die, and he could have tried to escape after that. Tyrion built that saddle for Bran when he didn't have to, but Bran respects cripples and bastards because he's always felt like one. Being an imp, that's how people have always treated him. And Tyrion was good to Sansa. Sansa was forced into marriage with him, and Tyrion could have treated her any way he wanted. He could have treated her like a whore if he wanted to. She was there in King's Landing with no one to protect her, or for her to tell anyone how she was being treated, but Tyrion respected her as a Stark, as a young lady, and he didn't do anything to disrespect her in any way. So I'm sure once Jon and Sansa met back up, and Sansa told Jon about her time at King's Landing and everything that happened, when she told Jon that she was forced into marriage with Tyrion, that he treated her good and didn't take advantage of her in any way, I think Jon would only grow fonder of Tyrion. So I could see them having a real good relationship. And I'm actually excited to see that, because in Season 1, some of my favorite scenes were between Jon and Tyrion. The dialogue they had together, I liked a lot. So I'm looking forward to seeing more scenes with Jon and Tyrion together. But let's move forward. It says, Dany respects Jon immediately, although Jon doesn't return the sentiment. And now I could see why Dany would respect Jon immediately. Jon just kind of gives off that vibe, and he kind of looks the role like an honorable guy. Not sure why Jon wouldn't want to return the sentiment. Maybe it's because she demanded that he bend the knee. I'm not really sure. You think Tyrion would, back Dany up to Jon and say, hey, she's a good woman. She wants to rule the right way. She wants to free the slaves. She wants to, treat the people good. So I'm not sure why Jon wouldn't return the sentiment. So I guess we'll have to see how that actually plays out and how he feels about her. He still doesn't know he's a Targaryen and related to her. So it'll be interesting to see how they, present that dynamic on the screen. It says Jon meets Theon, promises to spare his life for what he did when he helped Sansa escape from Ramsay Bolton. And this has already been proven in photos as well. We see Jon and Theon on the beach together. Jon has him grabbed up around his collar, and it looks like he's screaming in his face. More than likely for what Theon did at Winterfell, when he captured Winterfell and basically held everybody there hostage, and he killed Sir Roderick by executing him and chopping his head off. Then he killed two of those farm boys who he passed off as, Rickon and Bran. So Jon's definitely going to want to punish Theon in some kind of way for doing that. Even though he helped Sansa, what Theon did was still pretty disrespectful. He turned his back on Robb, and he basically spit on everybody at Winterfell. So I could see Jon wanting to punish him in some sort of way, beyond just screaming in his face. I know some of you disagree, but that's just how I feel. And I like Theon as a character, but he's just one of those push-around type of guys, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Jon slap him around a little bit. But it says Arya encounters her old direwolf Nymeria on the way to Winterfell. Now, there's no way for me to dispute that. There's really no way for any evidence of that to come out because Nymeria is added in post-production with CGI, so we're probably not ever going to see a leaked photo of them together. But I actually hope this happens. We haven't seen Nymeria and Arya together since Season 1. And if you know anything about Game of Thrones, if something didn't die on screen, it's more than likely still alive. So I'm pretty sure Nymeria is still out there running around somewhere. And I would definitely love to see Arya and Nymeria reunite and be together again. I like seeing the direwolves in the show. I know they don't use them a lot, but this would be a good chance for them to bring one back into the fold and back into the fight. So hopefully that does happen. It says Jorah and Sam meet in Old Town and find a cure for grayscale. Now, according to Watchers on the Wall, this definitely happens next season. I don't know who their sources are, but they seem to be pretty damn accurate. Almost everything they come out with seems to come true. And they said in a report that we will definitely see this happen. And by the look at the photos, you see Jorah back with Daenerys. And she told him not to return until he got cured. So I'm pretty sure he would do just that. And since he's back around her, I'm assuming that he did get cured. Because he probably wouldn't want to return and, risk spreading grayscale. So, and plus he has both of his arms, so he definitely just didn't go, drastic and cut one of them off. So this is likely. This probably does actually happen. I'm sure Jorah gets cured. Is it by Sam or not? I don't know. We know Sam's at the Citadel training. We know Jorah is the son of Sam's old Lord Commander at Castle Black. The Lord Commander saved Sam's life, so I'm sure Sam would want to help Jorah if given the chance. So that's pretty likely, I think. And it says Bran arrives at Winterfell and Meera returns home to the Neck. Now, I can only assume Bran arrives at Winterfell because he's right outside the wall. He knows the White Walker threat is pretty damn big right now, and they're closing in on him. He has the mark. They know where he's at. So I could definitely see him wanting to get safe. And Watchers on the Wall also reported that we're going to get the Stark reunion next year between Bran, Arya, and Sansa. So until they prove me wrong with any of their, leaked information, I can only believe what they say because they haven't proven me wrong yet. There's no photos to confirm this yet, but I'm going to assume that this does happen. And I guess Meera probably would return home to the Neck because now that Bran would be safe, there'd really be no reason for her to stick around. So I could see her going home. And hopefully when she goes home, she talks to her dad. Hopefully Bran says, "Hey Meera, when you get home, tell your dad I need to speak to him. I saw him in one of my visions, and I'm going to need him to help me confirm Jon's parentage. He was there. He probably knows some stuff. And Howland Reed may even know where the sword Dawn actually is. I know it was said that Ned returned it back to its home, but you never really know, man. They could have did something else with that sword. It could be in the crypts. I mean, who really knows? Howland Reed could have it stashed somewhere. So hopefully Howland Reed does come into the play and, he spices shit up in some way. He reveals some information that we've been wondering. And, if they bring Howland Reed into the story, I think things could get pretty damn interesting. So hopefully when Meera goes home, she tells her dad to, stop by Winterfell so she could talk to Bran. Or he could talk to Bran, sorry. So that's it for episode 3. 90% of it seems like it's probably true. And the other 10% just hasn't been confirmed by any photos yet. But so far, the first 3 episodes seem to be pretty damn legit. Most of it has been confirmed with photos, so I have no reason to dispute it, really. But give me your guys' thoughts. I know some of you still think all this is completely made up, so tell me what part of this you think is made up. I mean, I show you proof in a lot of these photos, but some of you think and interpret those photos in a different way than me, but I take them at face value, and what it looks like in those photos is exactly what it's saying in this leak. So to me, it seems to be true so far. So comment below, tell me what you think about this stuff. I hope you guys have a good Thanksgiving today. Wasn't sure if I was going to put a video out or not, but I already ate dinner. I'm taking a break from football. I wanted to get something out to you guys, to thank you guys for supporting me and leaving nice comments and liking my stuff and subscribing. I appreciate you guys, so happy Thanksgiving to you. I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Wait for me to dispute this. Photos have already came out that show this exactly happening, exactly as it states in the leak. There's been several photos that show Jon and Davos meeting Tyrion on the beach, surrounded by the Dothraki, and in the photo you actually see Jon and Tyrion shaking hands. So that's definitely going to happen next season. It says Tyrion brings them to meet Daenerys, which we definitely know happens as well. We've already seen in the leaked photos, Jon and Daenerys in several different photos, meeting each other, walking, talking, stuff like that. Dany demands Jon to bend the knee, which he refuses to do. Now, there's been no evidence of this. I'm not really sure why she would do this. You think Tyrion would have already told, her about Jon? If she, in fact, sends the Raven out, do you think her and Tyrion would be talking about Jon as he's getting ready to arrive? And you think Tyrion would be like, well, he's a good guy. So you think maybe she wouldn't do that. But, she's on a mission to claim this throne as her own. So I can definitely see Jon meets Theon on the beach and promises to spare his life for what he did helping Sansa escape. Arya encounters her old direwolf Nymeria on the way back to Winterfell. Jorah and Sam meet in Old Town and find a cure for grayscale. Bran arrives at Winterfell and Meera returns home to the Neck. Okay, so that's episode 3, so let's break down each section of it and discuss it. It says Jon and Davos arrive on Dragonstone and meet Tyrion on the beach. Now there's no... It says Jon and Davos arrive on Dragonstone and meet Tyrion on the beach. Tyrion brings them to meet Daenerys. Dany demands Jon bend the knee, which he refuses. Jon instead tells her about the White Walker threat, but she doesn't believe him. Davos tries to tell her about Jon's resurrection, but Jon dismisses it. Tyrion steps in to say Jon's a good guy and definitely not insane. Dany respects Jon immediately, although Jon doesn't return to sentiment. Hey, how you doing today, folks? In today's video, I'm going to continue my review of the plot leak. And in this video, I'm going to actually go over episode 3. So what I'll do is I'll read the entire leaked episode, and then I'll break down each section of it and discuss what sounds like it's going to happen, what has been proved in some photos, and then I'll talk about what seems like it could be made up or is not actually going to happen next season. Okay, so here we go. Episode 3.